Facilities that make this program possible are provided by the City of Highland Park. Programs are produced independently by members of the community. The City of Highland Park is not affiliated with the following program or the producers of public access programming and is not responsible for the content. The following program does not reflect the opinions of the City of Highland Park.
Welcome to another edition of Chill Out. I'm Pam Chill, your host, and today I'm very fortunate to have as my guest Alan Meyer, who's a playwright and advocate for issues pertaining to the deaf. Welcome, Alan. Thank you so much for appearing on my program. Now, I'm going to read a short bio about you, so we'll have a little bit of understanding of your background. Alan Meyer, born in New York City, is a salesman in the display business. After becoming the father of a wonderful, bright, happy, and profoundly deaf daughter, he began his second career as a sign language and deaf advocate. This has included a thrilling collaboration with Michael Nowak on the research, creation, writing, and promotion of the Signal season of Dummy Hoy. Alrighty, well, again, welcome to the program. You sent some links to me, and I did read most of those, and what I really kind of looked at and I was so amazed is how much your family is kind of taken over, you know, your creativity and your work. You know, usually people separate it, but you have kind of like put them all together. So if you want to just tell me, how did you get started?
Well, you know, expecting parents only have so much control over the nature of their child and physically, their learning capabilities, etc. We've been very fortunate to have two daughters who from the start were sponges to learn, sponges to educate, sponges to raise. And it's interesting because as both have grown, they are now adults and both doing noble work, and it's a double blessing for us to now what I call be raised by our own children. So we learn with them, we learn through their experiences, we learn through their work and their friends. And as you just mentioned, my older daughter is profoundly deaf, and she changed my life 180 degrees. I remember leaving the audience.
She was the onset, the inspiration for doing the great work that you
did.
did.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I remember leaving the audiologist's office saying I felt like I died and woke up on another planet, and indeed I did. The planet has been extremely rewarding, extremely interesting, and has brought out over the years creativity not only with the play but with my advocacy in general.
Okay, and what may I ask what they're doing now? Yes.
My older daughter lives in Rochester, New York, which has, by some accounts, the largest deaf community per capita in the United States. It has the second largest deaf college, which causes a lot of deaf people to stay there, move there, live there. She interprets for deaf-blind people. She is a certified deaf interpreter, and so the deaf-blind community is becoming very technologically advanced in or technology is available to them. Many are going to college, and so they can't see the interpreter in the classroom, so my daughter sits next to her quote-unquote client and either signs into their hands, or if they have enough vision, she will sign and they will take her hand and put it in their field of vision. It really is quite awesome. My younger daughter works in corporate social responsibility and has done a lot of very interesting and noble work in a number of fields that help people.
Okay, I think we have some slides, so we can start off by showing your wonderful family and kind of the changes of over the years. Okay, so if you
This
want to explain that.
really shows
Yes.
how early on in the process I got involved. When you have a child who is deaf, born deaf, prelingually deaf prior to the acquisition of language, there is an urgency to teach them language. And as a hearing person with absolutely no relationship to the world of the deaf, I went into, along with my wife, a very, very quick and intense learning journey. And we began teaching her the signs that we were learning.
You had to learn it as well,
we
right? Yes.
went right into,
Uh-huh.
we went right into learning that there were a lot of controversies which still exist about how to educate deaf children. And so we had to weed through that and make a very serious choice about where to send her to school. We didn't want to send her to a residential school. We were very fortunate to have a school for the deaf in the adjacent district to where we live. And so I got involved very, very quickly. I did a program for a cable company at the time about nonverbal communication, and it was a fascinating world, planet that I had entered, and it was really, I was ripe for it. It was just a need in my life for something of great importance, and I morphed into this 150%.
At that time, did they have closed captioning on different things?
Interestingly, we're talking about the early 80s when technology, certainly juxtaposed to what we have today, was in its infancy. Captioning was at best rudimentary, and certainly there was very little awareness of sign language or the needs of the deaf. Through the grapevine, I found out that Gallaudet University, which is the largest school of the deaf in the world, located in Washington, D.C. It's a liberal arts school. The college that's in Rochester is more technical school for engineers and architects. Gallaudet had come out with 6 VHS tapes called Rainbow's End, and that was kind of a Sesame Street for the deaf. And so I bought them and watched them together with my daughter, and that was an important adjunct to my teaching her to sign, our teaching her to read. And, you know, any parent should know that there is the adage that you learn 70%, and I'm picking a number, of what you're going to learn throughout your whole life by the time you're 7. So if you have a deaf child...
Because your retention is so
well,
much
and that's
better.
true, and we learn mostly because we hear, and so if you don't have your hearing, you have to find the back door, and the back door with us, we chose the sign language that was available to us to learn and teach her. And so in the Rainbow's End, one of the tapes had a little segment on a baseball player named William Hoy, H-O-Y. And a man came out, and he was dressed in a 19th century baseball outfit, introduced himself to some children as William Hoy, and told them about his baseball career, which started in 1886, and that he was influential in the evolution of umpires signing in baseball, which
to this day they do.
Which
yes.
Not only do they do, but as an aside, certainly there is a whole host of nonverbal communication that exists in baseball, but in all team sports, in all individual sports, there is nonverbal communication. The huddle in football was created at Gallaudet University. Because if you look at very old football, American football video, the teams lined up in between plays and the quarterback would talk to them. Well, at Gallaudet, the quarterback would sign and point, and of course the other team could easily follow what was going on. So the huddle was created at Gallaudet.
That's very interesting.
Yes.
Yes, I think we have we have a playbill, I believe, on another slide, so we can, for a couple more slides that we could put out. Daughter, yes.
When she was very young and very beautiful as she was the moment she was born. She will hate me for saying that, and she remains incredibly beautiful
Yes,
as
she is.
a young lady, as my other daughter is as well. A friend of mine said I have designer genes.
Okay, and this is a play we've been talking about.
This
right,
is
that you wrote.
a
Yeah.
scene in the last production of the play, which was done by the New York Deaf Theater. It's been off Broadway twice. We've been really fortunate. My writing partner, Michael Novak, who now hosts a gardening show in Chicago, was at the time an actor and co-founder of the Commons Theater, which really was very fortunate for us because absent of the play being terrible, which fortunately it never has been, we had a built-in production, and so we opened in Chicago many years ago and were whisked to an off-Broadway theater by some accounts too quickly, but that's really another story. There's reasons why plays open and take their time to mature. They're sort of like jigsaw puzzles. We had a very good run in New York the first time around. This is the second off-Broadway production a few years ago. The play has been done about 15 times, from high schools to colleges to community theaters, literally from coast to coast. Michael actually directed the third production, which was in Portland, Oregon, and by some accounts that was the production because the play had matured at that time, and since Michael directed it, it was really what we wanted. And we've had really wonderful productions, and the high school productions have been an honor for us to do.
That's good. And it could still be if anybody is interested in producing it.
Absolutely.
Yes.
The play is timeless. The story is
Yes,
timeless. It is not a play that most people say when they leave the play. They say many things to me, and they've been very generous to me, the thousands of people who have seen it over the years. But universally, they say to me, this is not what I thought it was. They come to the play thinking it's a baseball play. It's not a baseball play. It's a play about relationships. Baseball is inferred to off stage. It's not a play about the poor handicapped person who overcomes. It's an equal opportunity play. William Hoy, who was nicknamed Dummy because...
Yes, there was some controversy over that, too.
Yes.
Right.
He wanted to be called Dummy. He was extremely bright. His wife knew Helen Keller. I have many of his writings. He was valedictorian of the Ohio State School for the Deaf in the mid-1800s. But deaf people were called Dummy during that era. He lived till the age of 99. He actually threw out the ceremonial first pitch in the fourth game of the World Series in 1961 between Cincinnati and the New York Yankees. He was born in Ohio, and so for the last 10 years of his life, because he was 99 at the time, he died the next spring. For the last 10 years of his life, he became the oldest ex-major league player. And so every year on his birthday, the reporters would come to his home and interview him, and of course they would call him Mr. Hoy. He was 90, 92, 97.
Right, out of respect, obviously.
Out of respect, and he would bang his cane and he would say, "Call me Dummy," as always. And it presented another challenge because when Michael and I got together, we certainly agreed the play had to be called something Dummy Hoy because it was his choice to be called Dummy, and we had to find a way to
and you
absolve
procured,
ourselves.
obviously, the rights of the play from the family. And
well, we had, I had
yes.
done 3 years of research prior to meeting Michael and met his heirs. He's a public domain figure, so the rights to the play or the rights to the story only go so far.
Okay.
Other people have taken on the William Hoy story. I love the title of the play, and I can say that with great pride because I didn't make it up. Legend has it that Hoy invented the signals in baseball, but that's sort of apocryphal, and There's no way to really prove that. Actually, there's an umpire who's in the Hall of Fame. Sadly, Hoy is not, and we're trying to change that.
Maybe he'll get his turn with it.
Well, I hope so. But we had to call the play Something Something Dummy. Hoy and Michael's partner for many years, Kathleen Thompson, who is a prolific writer, came up with the name of the play, The Signal Season of Dummy Hoy, because signal, of course, means signals in baseball or signals in general, and it also means an outstanding achievement. It was a signal event. So the title of the play cannot be more perfect.
Yeah, what impact has the play had on a lot of audiences?
Well,
I mean, deaf audiences or hearing audiences?
I do want to just add to the previous comment by saying that when Michael and I went back and forth to absolve ourselves of calling him dummy, which obviously is today politically incorrect.
Yes.
We had various ideas of how to do that. What we came up with was the play has a scene at the end of the play where it is explained, and I won't, there's no spoiler.
We won't spoil it.
No
Won't give a spoiler effect on this.
But there is a scene at the end of the play where it is explained that even up until he died in 1961, that he wanted to be called dummy. So I have never, ever, ever in the 15 productions of the play in the media that has accompanied it, never had a challenge about that because it's in the play. The play has affected people in many, many ways. There is, do you have that playbill that I gave you? Or did you
I have it right here.
Right.
Let me turn it so we can take a look at it. This is it.
The play was done a number of years ago in Garland High School. And I found this just last night, the playbill for the play done at Garland High School outside of Dallas. And Michael and I went to see the play, and I often go to the productions myself to assist in whatever way I can. And the theater critic for the Dallas Morning News happened to come to the play with no idea of writing about it, or she had just heard through the grapevine that this play was being done, not really at the high school, but at an old Art Deco theater in the middle of Garland, Texas, which was really cool. Nancy Chernin is her name. She is the theater critic for the Dallas Morning News, and she got so into not just the play, but the story of William Hoy and his impact and his bravery, his courage. Can you imagine a deaf person in the middle 1800s who took the train by himself to Milwaukee because he loved baseball and he found out that there were tryouts for the team? They offered him $75 and he felt he was worth $100. And so he rejected their offer and went up to Oshkosh, Wisconsin, which is where our play takes place in 1886, and they offered him $100. So Nancy Chernin, the delightful Nancy Chernin, became a children's book writer. This is her first book, The William Hoy Story. It is a children's book. Of course, she does not use the name dummy to her credit. It's not necessary. It is a children's book. It has been a bestseller. It's available on your traditional book sites. And she has appeared in Cooperstown. She's appeared in libraries across the country. She's been interviewed on NPR. She is now on her 5th children's book. She wrote the book, The Charlie Sifford Story, which is, Charlie Sifford was the first black professional golfer to win a major tournament. She just completed the Irving Berlin story as a children's book. So she is one of the great residual benefits from us writing the play. But certainly, the thousands of people who have seen the play, I would venture to say that people have taken away many, many things from the play. And interestingly, if I may, when the play was when the play was done the last time off Broadway by the New York Deaf Theater, there is a woman who there is a woman character in the play who is played by a hearing person that does not know how to sign. And the woman that played the role in New York 3 or 4 years ago, my wife and I were in New York a few months ago, and we went to see the current production of the New York Deaf Theater, and she happened to be in it. And she signed fluently. And we hugged, of course, after. I went backstage, and I asked her, I said, did you take sign language classes? And she said, no. After being in your play, I immersed myself into the world of the deaf, and now I sign fluently. And so I could take up much of this time in telling you stories like that of people that have been affected by it.
When they do this, the Center for the Deaf, do they do most of the plays with people who are hearing impaired, or it's a little bit of both?
The play actually, for the lack of a better term, is a hearing play. In other words, there is a cast of 12 that is without the interpreters. We insist that at least a majority of the performances be interpreted. There is only one deaf character, which is William Hoy. And we have another character that will not spoil anything. Her name is Speaker Hoy, who is his conscience, and that is usually played by a sign language interpreter. That person has to know how to sign, because she comes out at certain points in the play when he's wrestling with what's going on in the moment, and she allows the hearing audience to understand a little more, because the hearing audiences don't get everything, the deaf audiences don't get everything. They get most of it, but I remember when the play was done in New York the first time, and I usually go and give Q&As afterwards and talk to the audiences. And a man got up and he said, I love the play, but why didn't I understand everything that Dummy Hoy was saying? And before I could answer, a deaf woman got up who was sitting next to him and said, now you understand. And it humbled him right away, and he said, you're right, you're right.
That's very, very moving, yes. I mean, it's like one is missing from there, one is missing from there, and they have to come together.
And of course, we hope that these scenes where Dummy Hoy only signs, or these scenes where there's only speech, that the context of those scenes will make what they're saying self-evident. We also have silent scenes where there's just white noise. There is dialogue written in the script, but the actors do not voice. And so that happens during certain times of the play. And those are very effective.
Well, that sounds very interesting. I think we have some more slides that we can go through.
This is actually the woman I was talking about
yes.
on the right. She plays a character who comes on the scene. She's fascinated with William Hoy. On the left is James Guido, who's the artistic director of the New York Deaf Theater. He himself is deaf and played Dummy Hoy during the last production. He is an extraordinary actor. And at this production, it was the first time that the play was captioned. It's in all the previous productions, we have had shadow signing, which is where two interpreters literally shadow the actors and sign during the play. The New York Deaf Theater decided to caption the play, and these are other photographs of the play in New York. On the right is the umpire.
Okay, very good. Do we have another slide coming up? It takes a little while to get in. There we go. Oh, that's a full cast, it looks like.
Yeah, the play takes place in 1886, and so obviously the costume designer has a big responsibility. We've had great costumes, and the set is very simple. It's a bench, there's a hotel room, a couple of beds. It's a very simple play to put on in terms of the set. It's not an easy play to do. And this is why when it's done in high schools, it's especially
Because they
poignant,
have had to do a lot of
because
research to do this.
what
yes,
happens
and training.
what happens in every production, whether it's high school or this production, which had significant New York actors, and our Chicago production, which had significant Chicago actors, is that the cast bonds. And that is, for me, as rewarding as seeing the audience enjoy the
That's
play and learn
great.
from. The cast goes out, they play ball with each other, they become friends, they learn to sign. It's a wonderful experience I had one of our productions, I was there at the last few performances. The cast came up to me afterwards and begged me to allow the play to extend, and I was like, "It's not my job."
Not your job. Yeah,
This
so
is
yes.
interesting. This was the poster when it was done in Salem, Oregon. It was underwritten by the Salem Volcanoes, which is a baseball
team
of the San Francisco Giants.
Oh, okay.
And there was a wonderful poster. It was a wonderful production. The director was a woman whose father was deaf, and she's a sign language and teacher at the Oregon School for the Deaf.
Okay, and we'll continue on the sides and see.
And when we had the production in Chicago, and I don't have the picture of it, similarly to the production in Salem, Oregon, the cast sang and signed the national anthem. When it was done in Chicago, the cast sang and signed the national anthem in the beginning before a White Sox game, and we were all on the field, and needless to say, that was very cool. In Salem, Oregon, this is the cast singing and signing the national anthem. The play has also been done in a summer arts camp in Connecticut, and this is the one and only performance that they did. And it's interesting, when they contacted me, I was like, this is not an easy play to do, and to do all that work. I wasn't trying to be pessimistic.
For a short time,
I was just trying to be realistic. And of course, that's the William Hoy story, and Nancy Chernin.
We'll keep going through the
Can
slides.
I mention Amazon.com? Yes, I just did.
I didn't hear. Okay, that's you and doing a Q&A.
Yes, that's me doing a Q&A in Nashville.
And I see some baseball jerseys there.
Yeah. And because the play is not new and people know who I am, I'm invited from time to time to speak about the play.
And
that is the wonderful Michael Novak, whose name is spelled with a W, but it's pronounced Novak. Michael is a gardening gardener and hosts a Chicago-based gardening show on Sunday mornings.
Okay, so in the time frame we have left, we don't have too much left.
Okay.
We talked a little bit about advocacy. So, are there any special projects that you're working on right now?
There's always projects because Pam, people often say to me, you're obsessed by this. You talk about it so much, but there's always controversies. There are always things because you see, deafness is a communication quirk. Helen Keller, later in life, is quoted by saying, blindness keeps people from things and deafness keeps people from people. And I'm certainly not comparing conditions, handicaps, whatever you want to call them. I'm not saying one is worse than the other.
Right.
But deafness is unique in that deafness is a communication barrier. If you ask my daughter on a scale of 1 to 5, where her hearing loss falls, it would be maybe 5, if not off that chart. My daughter is highly skilled at working and interacting with the hearing world, but so there's the cochlear implant, there is different ways to sign.
Absolutely. Well, that's to be for another program.
Right, for sure.
Right, and then we can talk about all the controversy and, politics and everything involved. Again, I'd like to thank you for appearing on the program, Alan Meyer. Thank you for all the relative material that you've sent me, relevant to, a lot of advocacy and your continued support.